Number 2.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. 402. Again, has everyone signed in for the budget hearing? There is a separate sign-in for the select board meeting. There's a new one for the budget hearing, so if you guys could make sure that you all sign in for that, that would be appreciated. Neat handwriting is a wonderful thing for our minute takers. And what we're going to do to make this really official, since this is our second budget hearing, is I'm going to go over some of the comments and changes that we made to the budget from the first meeting, and then we will make a motion to accept the budget as in full if everything is fine there. And then we're going to go over the warrant articles and do the same thing and make a motion for those. And then we're going to go over the proposed warrant articles and the verbiage and make motions to accept those and whether or not we're in favor. So we'll have a 3-step process here. Perfect. All right. On the most, if not all of the verbiage below the different sections, we had COLA increase of 3%. Well, if you did the math, 3% didn't always work out to be the numbers that we had in there. So we added 3% COLA or merit increases applied. So where you do the math, and for example, the office wages went from $130,922 to $137,443. That is not 3%. So part of that was merit increases and part was COLA increases. So that was a change that we made in verbiage there. I'm just gonna jump around a little bit for the verbiage changes. We have the health insurance increase of 10% under personnel administration. The FICA includes the library personnel insurance and New Hampshire retirement system for the director, and I just wanted to make sure we added that in there to make sure it includes all employees plus library employees. All expenses. On page 2, under the insurance section, there was a question about the word school in the verbiage. This is directly from our insurance company, and their explanation was all-encompassing as far as why there was a 9% increase. So Jackson did not necessarily have any school property claims, but the reason for the 9.25% increase was due to the entire organization and insurance suffering claims from municipal and school properties across the board. So I think that should clarify that we didn't have any specific claims in Jackson. Let's see what else we had on there. The Bartlett-Jackson ambulance number is in there. We had a different number in there from last year, but we finalized the budget for that. So that is $38,600 down from $61,540. And again, they requested no funds in 2024 because they were self-funded for the money that they were able to collect and raise. Fire department, we were good. COLA, EMD. And I'll ask for questions when I'm done just going over the changes we had here. Okay, wage and health. Library wages. Conservation. Anything else am I missing? I know, I had my first draft and I looked at that. There was a question also about the legal fees. We sort of hemmed and hawed about this. Do we want to increase it to $50,000 and this is back on page 1, I'm sorry. On legal fees for 2024, we had $35,000 budgeted, we had $6,900 actual, and then we have $50,000 budgeted for this year. That's a really big jump in what we spent versus what we have. But again, our attorneys raised their rate. The bond counsel, we will definitely have in there if the fire station gets approved. And then we also are going through a New Hampshire retirement system audit, which could result in some legal fees as well. We left it at 50,000. I'm praying we don't have to use it as well as everybody else in the room, but we really felt like that would be a safe figure to keep in the budget. Make sense on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I hope we don't have to use it all.
Exactly, exactly. We did find out some information about the solar buyout, and that we can buy out towards the end of 2025. We do have a expendable trust fund. I got that right. No, capital reserve fund of $75,762 as of the end of the year, and we're proposing to continue putting $15,000 into that. That would almost cover the amount of the power purchase agreement if we were to pay that off in 2025. We didn't feel like today was a good time to bring it up to pay off in 2025, so we're keeping it as is. We're still recommending the $15,000, and we'll see if that power purchase agreement still has that that final number, and we'll probably propose that in the 2026 budget.
What page are you on?
Oh my gosh, 1, 3, 5, and, no, on the solar, it's on the warrant article page. So our pages aren't numbered, so if you, 1, 2, 3, that would be page 5, yeah. So under the top there, recurring capital reserve funds, the very last one there is the solar energy. Thank you for slowing me down. And on that same page, we had recommended expendable trust funds for the town office, the highway garage, and the town parks. These are going to be new expendable trust funds that we are recommending. We reduced those numbers because we really weren't sure where to start those. So if you look at the numbers that we have included this year, we dropped those down, and now we have $20,000 for the town office building, $20,000 for the highway garage buildings, and $10,000 for town parks and buildings. So that dropped down from 125 to 50,000. Let's see if we have anything else. All right, that's what I had on my questions, and I'm hoping I answered anything. Do you have anything else?
No, right now I'm good.
Any questions that I missed that people have? Sarah?
Yes, my name is Sarah, and I asked you last week, I've asked you for months, years, why we cannot go back to the statement in the annual report on page 23 of the 2017 annual report. It gave us the name and the position of people that we employ. It gives their wages, their winter stipend, their statutory benefits, and the total. And I'm requesting, and have requested every year, for it to go back into our town report, with also possibly either on our website or or in this report, to show the townspeople what we give we give all federal holidays off. We give the day after Thanksgiving off. We give the day before Christmas, the day after Christmas, and the PTO time that we give our staff. You continually tell us that we want to keep our staff, that we have good hires and so on. And I think it's the obligation of the select board to show the townspeople in their town report what we exactly do give our employees to help try to maintain the staff that you say we so need. So I'm just asking, you never did answer that question last at the Budget 1 hearing. You did not mention it today when you were going through it, so I'm asking you to, and you said I could get it, but if I asked right now to get the proposed increase in pay, the statutory benefits, the winter stipend, and so on, could I get it today from you? Or is that a new file? You know, I mean, I just get this same thing, but as I say, you continually tell us we have good staff, we want to keep our staff, and I think it's only appropriate that taxpayers know how we do pay our staff and what we do give them for benefits and their PTO time, the amount, how it changes after so many years, how much more they add on to it, and so on.
So number one, I didn't realize it was a question versus a comment. So I appreciate you restating that. The other thing is it is available by filling out a form, which you know because you fill it out every year to request the information, and it's part of the Right to Know Act. So yes, anyone that wants to know that exact information can request it from the Select Board's office and get that information. So it is available. We did add some information, and it's not on here, but we will add it into the town report that adds a little bit more information that you have requested, but it is still not going to list everything that you have requested, so not the full amount of their salary, benefits, etc. But that is available to anyone that wants to request it through the Select Board's office.
May I ask you, I understand what you're saying to me, but I don't understand why you're not doing it the same. Why you cannot, what's your reasoning for saying that this is not a benefit to the taxpayers to know what people are being paid?
You know, I guess I'm not sure what the benefit is of putting it in there. It is available information. I feel like there's some level of respect that our employees deserve by not having their salaries printed out and online. That's my position. There is transparency, Sarah, in that anyone can have access to that information if it's important to that particular person. We review every person's entire pay package every year. So when we give increases, it's not based willy-nilly at all on just giving a COLA increase or whatever. We look at each individual position and the benefits that they receive. We compare it to other towns which are available upon asking or doing some research if the towns publish that information. So I'm very comfortable, like you said, in the amount that we pay our employees and the benefit packages that they deserve and get paid and provided. I'll also tell you that many of our employees lose vacation time every year because they don't get to use their PTO for whatever reason. And that's a personal decision for employees sometimes. Sometimes it can just be work-related because they can't take off time because they're short-staffed or staff turnover and things like that. I'll be happy to explain any of that information, but I feel like there's a level of confidentiality that should be respectful to our employees. I'm going to give you one more example. When we hire employees, and this is just a pure example, employees come in here with a set expectation of what their pay rate is when we publish that rate. They have their own homework to do and due diligence to decide what the fair pay is for that position. And if we increase or promote someone within, that's again their due diligence to decide that they're getting a fair wage for that position as well. You can go to a book and look for it, or you can go to comparable towns, and you can go to the Conway Daily Sun if a neighboring town is hiring. So there's different ways of doing some homework to find out what your position is and should be paid in your mind as that employee. So I guess it's information that is available upon request, but it won't be presented in the town report.
Well, it is in the school reports, and it is in other towns. I'm just curious as to why we don't give anybody.
Did you have any other thoughts or comments?
Only again to reiterate, the information is available, Sarah. You know it. Does anybody here feel shortchanged that they don't know that information, that they could get it whenever they want? I'm just asking this question. We're transparent, and we do treat our employees well because they're good employees. And we do want to keep them, and we're very fortunate to have the people we have.
Any other comments on the full budget before we start on the warrant articles? Yes?
So on the ambulance.
Andy
section-
Anderson, just
Yeah.
making sure everybody knows for minutes who you are.
Sorry, Andy. It's a good or bad to know that you know my name.
New to town, baby. All right.
On the ambulance section, there was nothing for the 2024 actual,
Yes,
but there was a budget, and then there's a budget again for 2025. Can you just explain how
sure.
that works?
Our Bartlett-Jackson Ambulance Committee is independent, independently run from the town. So Bartlett and Jackson volunteers and EMTs basically sign up for shifts, they become EMTs, et cetera, and it's all run separately. However, the two select boards of Bartlett and Jackson are kind of the oversight over the Bartlett-Jackson ambulance. Last year, we had $61,540 in our budget request. They have been so successful in collecting through insurance and other means, and I'll tell you, we do personal transfers. For example, if you decide that you want to leave the hospital and go to a different rehab facility and it's far away and your insurance won't cover it, they do these personal transfers. And they're very lucrative, but they're also really important to the patients and the families. So they make money doing that if they have the spare time. So last year, they were actually able to not have to ask either town to contribute to their funds. It is commendable. I made a comment at the last meeting. The services that we get and are provided through this ambulance service that cost the town $0 last year is absolutely incredible. And we have amazing, talented, and responsive teams. So we may, and they only ask for money when they need it. So that's why there was none. I actually, you might hate me for this, but I encourage them to ask for at least some money to show in the budget that they could use towards future capital expenditures, any equipment that they needed, and they said we don't feel, kind of challenge them, we don't feel like we need it, we have a healthy bank account. So they're very respectable in that way as well. The other thing though, I'm going to skip back to page 5 with the warrant articles. They ordered a new ambulance. So when you look at the, where is it, recurring capital reserve funds, we have the Bartlett-Jackson ambulance, and there's $127,000 in there, and we're putting another $50,000. That will cover the cost of the new ambulance that we will be getting at the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. Bartlett pays 50%, Jackson pays 50% of capital purchases. On the operating budget, so going back to the ambulance line item, Bartlett pays 60%, Jackson pays 40% of their budget. So that's how that gets broken out. We may not see a penny having to go out again this year, but it's pretty incredible service. So I hope that helps.
That is helpful, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, on the finance
Sorry.
admin section, professional fees,
Yes,
there's a step up in cost there.
yes.
And then kind of a follow on the legal side as it relates to STRs.
Yep.
Is there an annual STR license fee or something that the town?
There's
does
no
for it?
annual fee at this point. We decided years ago when we put a conditional use permit out to do a one-time registration fee. So there's a couple ways you can do it, and planning board can definitely give you more information on this, but it's a conditional use permit. So you register your short-term rental. It's $150, Bill, and they pay that upfront to register, and there's a form that has to be filled out, there are affidavits to sign, and that becomes registered. So there is no annual fee. Believe me, and I know where you're going on this as far as covering costs, anytime that we think there's something that we can do, we come up with different ideas and ways that we can help, have short-term rentals help our budget. We're sort of strangled a little bit. We can't charge them extra taxes. We can't do things over and above for short-term rentals that we can't do for like long-term rentals and things. So the planning board does proactively try to think of ways to do things. If there are legal cases, which we haven't had many legal fees for that, but we do build in a little budget for that, we would definitely try to recoup any legal fees that we could. And then the step up in the professional fees was due to our accounting and consulting firm that we use, as well as the, that's COAS Advisors, and then Intuit is our accounting package and the website fees. So that was a chunk of increase that we had to put in for this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Whose hand did I see? Jerry.
On the ambulance issue, the Bartlett Jackson ambulance is one, Action is another one. But Maine Med also has its own ambulance service. And from what I understand, they're going to be pushing more of the transfer issues onto their own ambulance program. And it may impact the transfer fees that the Bartlett Jackson ambulance goes on. I just wondered if they were aware of that and how they would impact that.
Definitely aware of it, and most of their transfers that they collect private pay on are not to Maine Med. They're more to other organizations where it's not technically covered by insurance. Most of, like if someone's transferring from Memorial to Maine Med, those are usually covered because of medical necessity. But they definitely are aware, between Gene Chandler being so involved with state politics and Sue Gaudette, who is one of the co-directors of the ambulance, they are really on top of state laws and bills that are going to possibly pass for ambulances, Medicare reimbursements, nonprofit, things like that. So, and if you want to ever talk to them too, they're really knowledgeable about that. So
They do a great job.
they definitely do.
Could I just
Yes.
mention about the Bartlett Jackson ambulance? It's coming. I don't know when it's going to happen, but everybody right now gets their money from doing the calls, and that's where all the money comes in. But we are seriously looking at having a salaried executive director and perhaps an accountant, because that's how big the load is getting. Sue Gaudette and Rick Murnick has been there. They were there when I was here in 1988, and they had been there 10 years before then. So they're getting older, and there's a new fellow that's in the middle, Rob, I can't
Rob
remember.
Reiners.
Rob Reiners. He's terrific. We're actually paying a stipend for him to get health care because he's so valuable to us. And he just lost his health care because he was under his parents' health care up to 26. So it's coming, but they do a fantastic job, as everybody said, but
And you say-
it will be coming.
And we say we, that's built into the ambulance budget, so they're not
Right.
under the benefits of the town.
Right.
They're covered under their
Right,
budget.
right.
But yeah,
So
they're
it's
they're
something
growing in
coming.
different ways.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I can't anticipate that their budget would increase substantially because Rob and Rick and Sue get paid for the jobs they do now, but it's adding more structure, and accounting would be billing and payroll for the most part, because insurance billing obviously is tricky. So, more questions? Yes, Bill, Terry.
Terry, this is not my question, but someone who can't be here until 5 o'clock asked about the question around the Bartlett Recreation Department and the budget for that, as to what service is being offered for the $6,700. The comment I heard was that previously they were offering some services and that those are no longer being offered. I have no idea what I'm talking about, so I'm just asking.
It's okay.
He said, where is the right time to complain about that? And I said, well, at this meeting is probably the right time to ask the question.
Yes, I don't know the answer to your question, so I would love to dig deep into that and find out, and if that's something that we can either change or whatever. Oh, Emily?
Can you just repeat what Bill's question was?
The question is for the Bartlett Recreation Department. We have $6,700 in the budget for each year, but through Bill, the messenger, he has heard that they're not providing the same services that they have in the past, and we don't know the answer to that. Does anyone here have any knowledge about that? So I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I will find out on that. So in the end, let's say we keep our $6,700 in here, and down the road they submit a bill and we decide we aren't seeing the value of that, it would be an underage in the budget for next year. So, yes,
Yeah, I think,
Name?
there used to be a series of...
what's your name?
Oh, Christina Kappa.
Oh, thanks, Christina.
I think that there were a series of sports programs associated with the middle school.
Yeah,
And I think that, and I think that's right, they aren't they're not providing that. So the Nordic team's actually been,
Yes.
Mike Dufalo, Kathleen Maynard are
Okay.
in the Nordic team, so, and cross country. So I think it's something to look into.
That was a good trick question, Bill.
And Peter?
And Peter Benson, just I think clarification is, there's two different things. So there's in Bartlett, there's the middle school, and then there's
Right.
Bartlett Rec. They kind of run hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of that came out of, actually, the middle school decided not to field the team. Bartlett Rec is more for other sports and cultural programs and educational programs outside the school that Jackson kids are, at least it was when our kids were there,
Yeah.
that Jackson kids are allowed to partake in.
Okay,
And they do use the ball field in the summer times.
okay. But again, we will definitely look into what that benefit is, and if there are other organizations, like the Jackson Ski Touring or whoever might want to, participate and receive funds for programs, I think that's a great place that we can use those funds for the benefit of our Jackson kids.
Say this with me.
Yes. All right, any other questions? Yes, Dick Bennett.
I'm just curious about financial administration. An additional $12,000 for professional fees.
So that, again, we talked about that. That was the COAS Advisors, mostly, is our outside accounting and consulting firm, and their fees went up substantially. They are kind of Julie and Betsy's right-hand man, so they call and use them as consulting, but they also file all of our state-required tax returns, etc. So that was a stiff increase for sure. And then the website and, what was the website when it was bigger?
So the website is migrating to a new platform.
Yes.
And it hasn't happened yet, but it's gonna happen in 2025, and that increased.
Necessary evils.
Yeah.
Okay. COAS is
I
also
just-
our auditor, like,
Okay.
they do the audit for the town.
Right.
Um,
And I also mentioned that because of the size of our town and our budget, we are able to waive having a full-blown audit. So they do, the COAS Advisors does quite an extensive review of our financial records, just short of an audit, which would probably cost us upwards of about $150,000 a year. So it's expensive, but it's a bargain, kinda. Next, do you have more questions?
Just what the Historical Society's, what is it, $2,071, what happened there?
Where's that?
Oh,
Um,
it's the actual for 2024 under Town Hall.
Bottom of the same page.
I'm not sure, but it could be either paying for the furnace that we got insurance for, or
Right.
part of that grant for redoing the curtain.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Those are the expenses, your electricity and your fuel that the town pays for, and then we send you an invoice to reimburse us.
oh, okay.
So that was the cost to run the building. But you reimbursed us, the historical.
Yeah, so there's a note right below that says town hall expenses offset in revenue.
Yeah.
Okay?
Great.
Jerry?
It's probably in here, but I'm having trouble finding it. For the, you call it fund balance, the undesignated fund balance,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like it was 1.4, almost 1.5 million. How much are you proposing to take from that fund this year?
We took $800,000 in October, November, when we set the tax rate.
Yep.
We don't anticipate what we're going to take year by year. It really depends on our budget and the numbers when we set the tax rate.
So you took some 800,000 from it?
Correct.
850, wasn't it?
for-
850,
for
okay,
2024.
850,000
Yeah.
this past year, and it still left an amount within the range that our accountants recommend us keeping in that fund.
Now, I'm a proponent of keeping the balance
Right.
down.
Right.
Because that fund is created by taxes that you take from the townsfolk and don't use.
Right.
And that's built up over time to almost 1.5 million. Could you explain how you arrived at the 850 or whatever it is?
When we look at setting the tax rate, we look at the assessed property values, and which we all know our property values increased. If anyone's in the room where their property value decreased, let me know. But the property values increased substantially, and we wanted to be able to put that money back in the taxpayers' pockets by reducing the tax rate. So like you said, giving that taxpayer money back to the taxpayers by reducing the tax rate.
And did you spend it on something?
No,
Well,
I mean,
when, in a sense, we were covering some expenses, like the sand shed of $290,000, and then $250 for the fire study. So we knew we had $540,000 more than we normally would spend, so we covered that, and then we got into a debate about whether how we could lower taxes, and Bob, I can just
So
explain that.
over the sand shed roof and the 250,
That was $540 all told.
right,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was confused, how it jumped from that amount to the other. And you did jump to lower the tax rate.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
more questions? All right, so Bob had to leave with an emergent, oh yes,
Extra copies?
in the back, are there more?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought we didn't
There,
have.
if there are none, we can get more. All right, so based on all of the questions and the comments and changes, the total budget on page 4 is the total operating budget. Last year was $3,055,118, and this year we're proposing an operating budget of $3,188,644. And that's a 4.37% increase. Motion to approve?
Absolutely, I'll make a motion to approve that budget. It's amazing.
And I will second that. All in favor?
I,
Aye. All right. Now, we are going to go over the warrant articles, and we can make a motion by total category. So we're on page 5, which isn't really labeled number 5, but it's the page right after 4. Page right after it's the beginning one that says warrant articles. Okay. These did not change at all from let me just peek at these. These did not change at all from our previous budget hearing number 1. So the recurring capital reserve funds 2024 budget was $175,500. This year's is $458,500, and again, 161% increase, but that was due to the fact that we took out $80,000 in 2024. We took out $80,000 for the fire department truck. We took out $100,000 for the highway truck and $100,000 for the highway heavy equipment in order to reduce the burden and still cover the costs of the fire station, construction, what's it called, the study, and the sand salt shed for the highway department. So that's why that's such a huge increase back to 2025. Frank?
I have a question about the fire department truck and $80,000. As I mentioned to Jay, I mean, just last year, we finished spending $1 million for a new fire engine. And as I understand it, this money is going towards another one in the year 2036, right? Trying to stay ahead. Is that?
Well, it depends if you look at a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan. So, if you look at it, we've got it here. Our 20-year plan, you're looking at 1.5 $1.65 million worth of equipment over 20 years. So when you do the math, that can put us around $66,890 a year it would take to buy everything as part of our capital plan. For 20 years though. If you look at 10 years, it brings the number up around $100,000 a year. So if you look at what we're gonna buy in the next 10 years, which could possibly include a full-size fire truck, you actually need $100,000 a year. My hope is that we get more than 30 years out of that truck. The last truck is 34 years old, so we had it 34. NFPA recommended you get rid of them in 15 years, but that's another subject. And my expectation is we should be able to hopefully get more than 30 years out of it would be my best plan because they're so expensive.
What I'm probably more concerned about is who's gonna drive these things? Who's gonna be in our department to handle this equipment? Right now, you tell me you only have several guys who know how to drive, and women who know how to drive the fire trucks that we have now. In 10 years, and the average age is about 65 or 66 years old.
Yep.
How are we gonna man our fire station? Where are the people gonna come from? Who's gonna drive these trucks? Maybe we should be thinking something differently about buying equipment.
Well, we have examined and researched smaller trucks, different configurations. Basically, the short story is the three bigger fire trucks that we have, that's what it takes to get the job done for what we need to do when we roll to almost any scene, whether it be a car fire or a car accident or a house fire. And initially, to get all the equipment we need there and be able to function and perform any kind of initial attack, whether it's a big attack, small attack, that's what we need to operate. We can't, I'd love to go to a smaller truck for one of them, but I can't fit it. I have to sacrifice ladders and fire hose. And if you live up on the mountain, you really don't want to sacrifice fire hose, because that's how we get water down narrow driveways. I really don't think you want to sacrifice, and the third truck that you talk about is our ladder truck. It hauls the majority of our bigger ladders. 35 footer, it's a 3-section combination ladder, 35 foot, extremely heavy. That's our ladder truck. I don't think anybody here wants us to sacrifice ladders to access the building. Believe me, I have tried everything in my power, and if I could have my way, it would be a lot easier to deal with 2 trucks than 3 trucks. But we can't do it and get the job done, period. Like I said, we've researched smaller truck, we've researched and researched and researched, and we really need to stay with what we got.
Jay, can I ask a question? How many additional trucks do you have now than you had 20 or 30 years ago? You have the same amount of fleet?
In the 34 years I've been here, yes, we have the same amount.
So we haven't increased the
We
number
haven't
of trucks that
increased
we've had
at all.
over 34
Nope.
years?
No, we've always had 3 primary engines, one of them being a tanker. We've had a utility truck and a forestry truck. The pickup, I guess you could say, is the only thing we've added.
Okay.
And back to your question about drivers, I don't think, as long as one of the reasons we bought the fire truck that we bought last year or 2 years ago, whichever year we purchased it, it was kind of a 2 or 3 year deal. One of the biggest reasons was to get an automatic that was easier to train people to drive, which we haven't succeeded with. Right now, we have a driving program that we spend one of the most time consuming things we do in training is teaching people how to drive because of our topography. We have no choice but to make people better drivers because of the hills. So we've had extreme success with that. And we don't have any trouble right now staffing drivers that do a good job. What the future brings, I don't know. What's the future bring for the PD department? What's the future bring for any of them? I can't tell you where we're gonna be in 15 years with manpower.
I think we could speculate a little bit on that and know how expensive it is to live here. That we're not, and we're basically a retirement community now. Something that, a little bit different than we were in 1988 and beyond, but before then. So I don't know how we can anticipate that we're gonna have people to run the equipment and also to man a new fire station, go that far. So, we have to think about that. It's incumbent upon the selectmen to think about it.
And we do think about it. We thought about the future and the fact that you may see us hiring per diem people just like the ambulance does. And that's not gonna be for workload, that's gonna be just because there's weekends, vacation, holidays where people go away. And we may need some per diem people. Maybe we'll end up with another full-timer someday, who knows?
Dick, did you have a question?
Yes, as we look at these major expenses for the years, we're talking 2036, what happens if we bond at that time, whatever it is we want to purchase? That way, going forward, the tax base of the town is paying for what that equipment would benefit. Right now, I'm not gonna be here. I might be here, but I'm gonna need more than a fire truck. But no, if we bonded at that time, as we needed it, then it would benefit the people that are in town at that time.
Yeah, and that is a consideration that we've talked about, but in the philosophy of Jackson, and I hate to say this is the way we've always done it. Is that the best way to do it? That's one of my most unfavorite sayings. So is that the best way to do it? I feel like being an accountant, certain capital expenditures should be planned for and certain should be bonded. And when you have something like a depreciable asset, like a vehicle, I don't feel like bonding is the right way to go on that. Now, that's my input and opinion, but we can definitely look at that moving forward. And you're shifting pay now or pay later, for sure. So that is something that we can consider. Peter, did you have a question?
No, just a comment. We're talking about two different things here. Equipment is one thing.
Yeah.
Personnel is another, and
Right.
town needs. I would encourage us collectively and the selectmen to look at all town services. Our demographics are changing rapidly, right? From school, you're absolutely right, Frank. We are older, but I'd like to say wiser.
Yeah.
Staffing-wise, we're in as good a shape as we've been in a long time, but it takes us a good 3, 4, 5 years to onboard somebody that can drive, get all their trainings and certifications. So it's a process, and we're in the middle of that with a bunch of people. But I think you're absolutely right. Speculating for every department in terms of what we could do in the future is absolutely something we should look at. We're looking at a school with 28 Jackson kids in it right now. So there's another. There's all kinds of things we could look at. But I don't think cherry picking one department out and saying that we have needs and we have to speculate in the future. It should be a town-wide assessment.
And just one comment to piggyback on that, please feel free to attend the Housing Commission meetings because we're working on trying to find more affordable housing, and I say that in the most wonderful way. If anyone has property they want to donate to the town so we can move more families here, we're looking at that. If there are donations or contributions, whether it be financial or service-wise, we need architects, we need builders, anything like that down the road that can help us find ways. Our target goal is to bring 5 families into town over the next year to to 18 months. So we're being aggressive about it, but we're gonna have a public event in May, but the Housing Commission Housing Commission meets once a month, and we have a website, so feel free to go to the town website and look that up, but Scott Badger is the chair of that, I'm the select board liaison. If anyone wants to join, we're always looking for new members, and we're really aggressively trying to bring more families into town to help this aging situation, so just a comment there. And Jerry and then Tish.
To piggyback on what Dick was talking about, when you bond something, as opposed to putting money away regularly for something, the taxpayer doesn't get a chance to have any input when you go to buy whatever the equipment is. But when you, for example, if they want to put $80,000 a year in to pay for a truck in full, the public doesn't really get a chance to have input as to whether or not it should be bought. Whereas if you put half into a capital reserve fund and bonded half, then the people who were getting the benefit of that capital expenditure would be alive to have benefit from it, as opposed to putting it away. I would recommend, in other words, if $80,000 is what it's going to take to buy a vehicle X number of years from now, why not put half of it in there and bond the other half? Two benefits. One, the public would get, the voter would get a chance to vote on whether or not they wanted to buy that capital expenditure or not. And then the people who are getting a benefit for it would be around to have the benefit of it. And I also feel compelled to talk about the housing issue in Jackson. The housing crunch is on both coasts. It's not just in Jackson.
Correct.
And the government and all kinds of organizations are trying to figure out ways to do it. They don't look to towns that have vertical real estate, no sewer system, and no real public water system. Because those add huge expenses to the construction of a home.
Right.
And so, as much as I would love to see an affordable house here in Jackson, I laud the goal of getting 1 or 2 families or 5 families a year. That keeps us young and not just a retirement community. We don't have a school. We're going to have just a retirement community.
Right.
In other words, if we do plan with Bartlett for our 7th and 8th graders. We plan with Conway for our high school students. So we're always planning, or the boards are always planning with other towns as to how to properly educate our kids. It may be at some point where we have, I recognize that we have mutual aid agreements, but it may be at some point where we have to, like Eden, contract with another town for our fire services. If we don't have young people in Jackson that want to be first responders. So I think that, again, to piggyback on what Dick was saying, why are we trying to fund the tune of $80,000 a year, a fire truck that many of us here won't be around to enjoy or the benefits of?
You're not leaving any money for your grandchildren? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
My grandchildren are probably not that
All right, 1 second, Jay. Tish?
We all know each other quite well.
Yes, yes.
I just have a general comment in that, thinking about the housing, and when we look at housing in our town, and we've just seen this major increase in assessments, we just raised the tax base.
Yes.
We're talking about a new fire station, we're talking about a very expensive school. All of a sudden, it becomes even that much more unaffordable. And I imagine, I don't know how many of the fire department live in Jackson, but they're doing well in keeping people here. I mean, I guess my general thought about fire, thinking about fire in 10 years, things are changing so fast in the world, who knows what it's going to look like, what a truck will even look like. in 10 years, a fire truck. But, you know, we don't know, but it just seems to me that the housing thing is becoming more and more impossible. I mean, I have a couple of rentals, and I have people in here long-term, and if the taxes go crazy, the assessments go up, everything, it just becomes like, okay, now rents get more expensive. And so it's just, I don't know how to deal with it, but this is becoming the impossible thing about this town.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's a high-end tourist retirement town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get too far off on housing because it's not going to apply to the budget as much, so I want to stay on task, get back on task a little bit. Jay, comments?
So we
And then
have
some-
in the past, not the most recent past, but in the past, we used to fund that way. We put a little bit, we put less money away. And then when it came time to buy a fire truck, like for example, Engine 6 was like 300,000, I think, when we bought it. We had whatever we might have had. If we had 200,000 saved up, and then we hit the taxpayers that year that we bought it for the 100 grand. So we have done it that way in the past, and you know, we could go back to that if we so choose. That was one item. The only other item I want to mention that's really important to me when we talk about why we have 3 big expensive trucks. A big item there is having a reserve truck, or sort of a reserve truck. If we had 2 big trucks and one breaks down, it makes our life extremely difficult, makes everybody's life, you know. When you have 3 and one goes down, we kind of can deal with it. When you have 2 and one goes down and it's down for a week or 2, that's a big item, really big item. You know, when people talk about, well, we've got mutual aid, well, yeah, we do have mutual aid, but it's all about initial things you've got to accomplish when you get there.
Peter?
Just very quickly,
Thanks,
I'll
Jay.
just, you know, the one thing I think we do have going for us is we live in a low-tax state, and we live in a low-tax town in a low-tax state. Our property taxes are not minuscule, but they're always we're always in the 90th percentile for lowest taxes in the state.
Right.
So, you know, I guess my question is if you're not going to be here, where are you going to be? It's not going to be any cheaper anywhere else. So the one thing we do have is if we can get people who can afford to live here and move here, the tax burden is not as high as it would be in just about everywhere else in the country.
Right.
That's for
Alright.
now, but I do like this hybrid plan that Jerry and Dick have been talking about, putting less in maybe bonding in the end, for all the reasons that they gave. I'd like to zero this 80 right out, right now, and have this debate and talk a little bit more about what the future looks like with a fire station, with new equipment, where the people are gonna come from, where they're gonna live. That's, all right,
Jay?
I don't have a problem discussing it by no means. It's definitely a town-wide thing.
Yeah.
It's not just the fire department.
well,
You know, and all of a sudden, we're gonna be bonding, you know, I mean, highway trucks are not cheap these days at all. You know, so we're gonna be having multiple bonds at multiple times, all the time.
do you always have to buy new trucks? Do we always have to replace a new truck?
I think we're pretty conservative in the amount of
just-
work we get out of our trucks.
And what do they
because
get
we
it
keep
on?
them.
That's right,
I know.
that's right, and we have a very good mechanic taking care of him, that's Jay, so.
Well,
he keeps
not
them
just
going.
Jay, when you talk
Well,
about the highway crew as
Well, we got
well.
Jim is terrific. also.
All of our employees that have vehicles to maintain.
Right.
Not necessarily the ones they drive every day, but vehicles to maintain, take extremely good care of their vehicles. And one thing that we don't consider here is the fact that when we buy an $800,000 vehicle, we do have some value in the vehicle that we're replacing. So hopefully we get some money back on selling that vehicle. By the way, we have a fire truck for sale if anyone's interested. So I agree with you that this is a town-wide discussion that we should have. But I also think that if you were going to reduce the fire truck, and I'm not proposing this, I'm just saying that if you're going to reduce the recurring capital reserve fund contribution for the fire truck, it should also be reduced for the highway trucks and the heavy highway equipment.
No, I couldn't agree with you on
But,
that.
why?
Because those trucks get a lot more wear and tear. That's why, for the most part.
But we could bond them,
You
just
know?
like
Well,
we're
the idea of
recommending
bonding, but
for the.
okay, well, okay, that's possible, okay, but I'm just saying, as far as that money is now, that's much more important money than the 80,000 for 2,036 for the phantom driver. That's just what I'm saying, but I wanted just to have the discussion so people understand what we have to look at and think about as we move forward. But our department does a great job, believe me. No one can ever say a bad thing about what we do and how we do and what our volunteers do here. So it's out there now.
I mean, if you wanna, if you're gonna wanna look at a 10-year plan, I mean, the math is showing that you could drop it a little bit. But whatever you wanna do, I guess.
Maybe.
Oh.
So this is Andy
Andy.
Anderson. I mean, to your point on the 80,000, if you look at the highway truck and then the heavy equipment truck,
Yes.
it wasn't in there last year because you spent the 250 on the fire station study.
No, it was.
And the highway.
It was a 290 for the sand shed.
Yeah.
That's what we did, yeah.
So they're coming back in here this year.
Right.
To have the discussion, you take it out of the budget this year because you're also looking at a potential increase due to the new fire station. And by having it out in those 2 years, you're kind of moving towards that half later, half on. And that it gives you time to bond.
Keep in mind, there won't be an increase in 2025 taxes if the fire station goes.
It would be
It'll
2026, right.
Right. It's coming.
Which is coming in June.
So, I don't know what to do because we're gonna have a one-to-one here, so.
No, I can't, I wouldn't do that, all right? Because we should have all this, and I know it's a one-to-one to pull
Yeah.
that out. That's, if I had a sense of what people in the room feel.
Well, so correct me if I'm wrong, thank you for your expertise here, Julie. If the select board recommends the numbers that are on here for the recurring capital reserve funds, at town meeting, do we have a discussion and change those amounts by line item?
Yes,
Jerry, that's
Yeah.
correct? I'll ask it again.
Um,
If we have, oh, did you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can, and I asked the question before, that if, and again, when that happens, people can discuss each issue and can say, well, we don't want to put 80 in there, we want to put 40. It goes to the bottom line, right?
Okay,
And then the selectmen can either decide to honor what the people recommended or not.
Well, we
Okay.
would.
But you're talking about warrant articles, not the.
I'm talking about warrant articles. Aren't they line by line approved by the taxpayers?
Not actually, they go to the bottom line. The taxpayer can say, we don't want to spend this on that.
Okay.
It adjusts the bottom line.
Okay,
The process is, the voter says, I'd like to appropriate, in the case of the 80,000, I'd like to appropriate, or as they did with the Housing Commission. They reduced that amount. The selectmen could have said, no, we're gonna go ahead and spend the, whatever it was, the 50 grand, and take the other money out of something else. And I asked the question several meetings back, if the selectmen would honor what the voters recommended. I'm not gonna ask you to, I'm not gonna poll you guys and say whether you would or not. I'm just saying that it's up to you how the money gets spent. It's up to the voters to decide how much they want to reduce it by. So that's.
You can ask me, and I'll
That's a
say yes.
cautionary tale. And I think it's inappropriate, I'm going to say something else. I think it's inappropriate to pit one department against the other.
Right.
I don't think that's how we should look at it. But I do, with respect to the highway department and fire, and I'm not trying to pit them against one another, but the highway department uses the vehicles every single day, 7 days a week, sometimes 24 hours a day. And, you know, where would we be of that if these guys didn't have the trucks to move the snow or whatever it is they do? I don't think it's appropriate it's
Okay,
it's not apples to apples.
gotcha.
Yes.
Jay, one more comment?
Lost my train of thought.
Okay.
We'll come back to it.
I did.
All right, in that case, then, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the capital reserve funds of $458,500 to go to town
Okay,
meeting.
and knowing full well that this could be discussed again in the floor,
Correct.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good discussion. All right, moving on to the recurring expendable trust funds. The only thing that went up on this was the bridge repair for $35,000, and again, that is to bring it up to the amount that will cover the additional cost for the trusses, less the amount that we had underspent for some other budget items, and then the $15,000 for the police department equipment, which is a infusion into their technological equipment, so computers, all new computers. And then 10,000 less on the library maintenance and repairs ETF, which they are fine with the budget that's sitting in there now. Jay?
I don't know if you want to mention now or coming up.
The dry hydrant, we'll mention that coming up.
Was removed.
We'll come up with that
From
on the warrant articles, in the specific warrant articles. Any questions on that?
No.
All right, we'll make a motion to accept the $232,000 for the recurring expendable trust fund for 2025.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Were there any questions on that, on those now that we made the motion? Sorry.
Too late.
Yes, Laura?
Just to clarify, for the recurring capital reserve funds, you voted to keep it the same as it is.
That's correct.
With
And
the-
I'm sure we'll discuss that at town meeting.
Right,
To be
with that
discussed at
option.
town meeting.
Yes. Recurring social services and the chamber support, $27,791 in 2024, $28,249 in 2025. Any questions on that, Frank? There was one increase for the way station.
No, it's good.
Any public questions or comments on that? I will make a motion for $28,249 to be included for recurring social services and chamber support.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Okay, aye.
Aye. Okay, here comes the meat. We're gonna go over each one of these line items, and we're gonna start with the fire station bond. So this is the $5,582,135,000 not to exceed. And that was a statement that John Ritchie made at the bond hearing, that this would be the highest dollar amount that it would cost to bond the new fire station. This is going to be a public vote at town meeting, and it will most likely be a ballot vote. So please bring, which means it's not going to be everybody raise your hand who wants it, everybody raise your hand who doesn't. It will be a secret ballot vote. So please bring identification to town meeting on Thursday, which is where it will be voted on. Laurel?
It won't be a secret ballot vote unless it's petitioned during town meeting.
That's correct. We're already hearing that it's going to be petitioned at town meeting. So that's why I'm kind of making it pretty well known. Jerry?
It will be a ballot vote, a yes or no. By statute, we have to keep the polls open for 1 hour.
Right.
However, you can conduct business while it's going on. The way I'm suggesting that we do it is that it's the first article, first of all, and we would divide the room, X would go to the front row, third, divide it up into 4 sections, and go and vote. I will not conduct any business until everyone in the room has voted. And yet the polls will stay open, so we won't count the ballots until 1 hour. So if stragglers are coming in, like my son comes in 45 minutes later saying, welcome, Jerry, why'd you take so long to get here? But he'll be allowed to vote. So that's the way I'm proposing that we do it.
Okay,
Once everyone in the room has voted, even though the polls will stay open an hour, we'll continue business.
okay. That sounds like a plan. Bring snacks. No. Sarah?
A question for you. How many votes have to be cast? It goes on a,
It's actually 3/5 of the total amount of voters have to be for or against to approve it. It's actually 3/5, 60%.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
60.
supposed to be
I think
60.
it's- Yeah, so
It's 60.
60%
of the previous.
one way or the other.
Of voters present.
Voters present. So that means, and I'm saying this because the people need to make the decision. Whether you're for or against, come and vote. It's really important. I know how I feel, I know how Frank feels. Come and vote. This is where it really is going to make a difference on your input. We have between 950 and 1,000-ish registered voters. If we get 250 people at town meeting, that 250 people are going to be making a decision about $5.5 million. Come on out. You have an hour to vote. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Sarah?
If I understood what he said, and you kind of just clarified it for me, the meeting starts March,
Yeah,
what is it?
13th.
13th.
At 7 o'clock.
Yep,
As soon as we get through the Pledge of Allegiance, the song,
Right.
and so on, Jerry is going to open the polls. We're going to be divided, we're going to vote, but anybody that straggles in has, say, 8.
it's from 7 to 8.
Say
Yep.
8:15
Yeah.
by the time the polls open, or 7:15 the polls open, maybe 7:20.
Correct.
Then we'll vote inside, and then anybody that comes in can vote until 8:20.
Correct.
And that's by
And that-
statute, so.
Yep.
That will be closed. Okay.
Yes, and I think that's really important. And Karen, talk to me about registered voters and how, when's the last time someone can register to vote?
If anyone who has not registered to vote, the very last moment to have the opportunity to vote in person at town meeting on Thursday, you must register to vote on Tuesday, the 11th. You
Okay,
cannot register to vote on the 13th. It
right.
is only at town election day on Tuesday.
And we will have poll pads available. The supervisors of the checklist will be available to check everyone in. So we're hoping it's going to be a really organized fashion. But again, come for the voting, stay for the meeting, whatever. Just please come and cast your vote. It's really important. Yes, Ken?
The supervisors, Kevin Donahoe, the supervisors beg you to really emphasize to everyone to bring their driver's licenses,
Yes,
so they don't have a bottleneck at the doorway.
yes, really important.
So if you can publicize that.
Yep, when Betsy puts the minutes out, but we'll also do another e-news blurb, at least 1 or 2 e-news blurbs. So, yes?
Hey, good to see you. Just a quick question, procedural question. If, for example, the fire station vote failed, what would happen? Is there a proposal on the table?
Well, I'm gonna cry, Frank's gonna rejoice, and then, no, I'm kidding.
I'm not gonna rejoice, but we'll have to rethink.
It'll,
And there are some plans out there that no one's talked about for 4 or 5 years, but they're there.
yeah.
But we'll get to that.
If it does not pass, then it's sort of back to the drawing board on whether or not we go next year and approach it again, or if it's a renovation type of phase, but there is not anything formal. What if this happens, that happens.
Can something be proposed on the fly that evening to be voted on, or does it go to like next year?
It would go to next
We
year.
have to, because the bond is specific for something.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions about the
Dick.
fire station? Oh, Dick?
Hi, Dick Bennett. I was wondering if the plan for the fire station, the building plan, is set in stone. Is this it? Is there any input as far as, say, the facade, the false work at the front, the porches? I didn't have
Yeah.
builder's blueprint to go with. I have the renderings. So I'm thinking, form follows.
The basic design is kind of committed. I mean, we got 200 grand in design work. The design is basically as minimal as we could get. For instance,
But wait,
The porches
Yeah.
are not.
okay, wait, I don't want to get into a debate of what you think and what you think. The question is it set in stone? And if there are changes that you want to recommend or change after that, that would reduce the cost, then, or if you want to pay for additional costs over and above the 5.5, you two can talk about that with the committee. But at this point, this is what's being proposed according to the agreement. So Jay, I think that's really what it is.
Yeah,
Like, if Dick gets a really good
there's some
deal on
minor changes
wiring.
like paint color or,
Yeah.
I mean, there is no porches. But there's some minor stuff like that, yes, we could change. But the majority of the important stuff is that
Yeah.
designed and at a minimum.
But aesthetically, yes, there's always room for conversation, and if it reduces the cost, again, because this would be the maximum cost asked for of taxpayers. Does that help?
It does.
Okay, thanks. Yes,
I guess relative to that, when it was first proposed by the original committee that worked on the design and location of the firehouse, it was located on what I'll call the old tennis courts, South Campus, whatever,
next to the
Apartment.
library.
next to the library. And for whatever reason, they changed it to another location. And I'm wondering, A, why that was, and B, if it was a better location for the building.
Well, there's been lots of discussions at many meetings as far as why it changed, but I think that the end result and end answer is the $250,000 that was spent this past year to decide where the fire station would sit has been vetted, considered, tested, test pits have been dug, so where it would end up going between the town office and the current fire station is the best spot that it's going to go. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Okay. Tish?
If that passes, I just wonder, and I know I read it somewhere, but could you repeat if you have it, the cost to the taxpayer?
I don't have those numbers committed to memory, but for a $500,000 house, which, does anyone have a $500,000 house in Jackson?
Mine's not that one.
No, and so, that goes back to the housing, so it was $360 a year for a $500,000 house, was that? I know, and Julie's gonna look that up.
200 bucks, it was
asking.
200 on a $500,000.
200 on a $500,000 house.
First year, and then it goes down from there.
Yeah, and it fluctuates based on the bond being paid off.
And for how many years?
20. And then just a little footnote to that, 2031, so 6 years from now, is when the highway garage bond is paid off. And that's decreasing year by year as well because it's being paid off. So I don't have the dollar values on that, just throwing it out there that we do have an existing bond that we're paying off. Peter?
I would just also add that the high school bond is finished being paid off as well this year.
Awesome.
I think this year. I think we're done with the high school bond.
Okay.
Somebody way in the back.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh,
Will that amount,
hi Bridget.
will that amount per thousand or per 500,000 be listed at the town meeting?
I will make sure it is. Yeah, I think that's important to
What we'll
know.
know is what the cost per thousand is each year as the bond goes. So if it's 66 cents, which I think I remember.
Yeah.
You just do the multiplication times whatever your valuation, and I'll give you an idea
Yeah.
of where your bill's gonna be.
But we can also put that out through e-news and on the website. I believe it's available on the website already.
It is.
Yeah. But that's a good thing because I think that's important for folks to know that may not have that committed to memory or the website tagged or whatever. So,
I would appreciate that.
yes.
Jerry.
Jerry?
I noticed from the amortization schedule that was printed, the cost to the taxpayer when it's paid off in 20 years is well over 7 million.
And could I just add to that, just one more concern that's come up, because I have been opposed to this 4 years ago, as opposed to this project I am this year. But, you know, do you think we're gonna have 25% tariffs on building supplies here at any time in the next few months? Just think of what this, well, I know right now it's a freeze, but who knows what's gonna happen, all right? And this could balloon to something that we don't really wanna have. So that's just another thing to think about when it comes time for whether you wanna vote for this. And as I say, there are possibilities, but, and I just have to say one more thing, because there's only 2 of us here.
Yes.
Okay? And I want to make sure that the entire town gets a chance to vote on this, as opposed to 4 years ago, when the board decided not to even let it see the warrant, okay? So tonight, I was prepared to say no, and it would be 2-1, knowing that Barbara and Bob are for it, but Bob's not here. So I'm going to be for it again, because I want to be consistent, to make sure that the entire town has a chance to vote on this. In between now and then, there'll be a lot more information about making an educated vote, okay?
And I appreciate that from you, because like I said, I'm inviting all the taxpayers, not just the ones I know want this or don't want it. It's really important for the town to wrap their arms around this the way they feel they want to. Whether you're wrapping them around the old fire station or new fire station, it has to be a majority vote. Anything else? Laurel?
Yes, just to clarify, there's no way to be an absentee voter.
No. That's one of the hardest things to wrap my head around, is that something of this magnitude gets voted on at town meeting when you have a fraction of the registered voters there.
Okay.
And I wish there was, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. So, and you can't even send a delegate, so. But, all right, thank you all so much for all the input and discussion on this. It's really a big thing, so thank you, Frank. I'm going to keep going through this, and then we'll make a motion. Yes. So the fire department emergency radio communication ETF 7000. These are all new warrant articles. Are these in writing too then, Julie?
Yes, they are.
So I'm going to skip over this and we're going to go. Okay. So we voted on the first 2, 3, and we're going to go down to just, there's a petition warrant. The petition one is on there too. Okay, we're going to move on to the verbiage here. Does anybody need a break? All right, we're good. All right, 2025 proposed warrant articles. We're on the page here where it starts with all the wording. I'm going to read these, and then we're going to vote on whether or not the select board is in favor or not. Warrant article number 2, amendment 1, zoning ordinance, to see if the town will vote to adopt an amendment to the Jackson zoning ordinance, short-term rental, section 4.4, application procedure 4.4.3, additional language to 4.4.3.6.b. Bolded words are the changes. The maximum number of bedrooms that the dwelling unit can be advertised for in any published listing or other form of marketing shall be the lesser of the number of bedrooms listed on the town tax card, the building permit, or the septic approval. The maximum number of people that the dwelling unit can be advertised for in any published listing or other form of marketing shall be 2 people for each such bedroom plus 2 additional people. Recommended by the planning board 7-0. The big change here is that we didn't list the number, we didn't have it specified to ask for the number of bedrooms. So that's the big key that's being added in there. For example, if you have a tax card that says a 2-bedroom house, but you have a loft, another sleeping area with proper egress, and that would make it 3 bedrooms, you cannot advertise for 3 bedrooms because the tax card and the septic card are for 2 bedrooms plus 2. So 2 bedrooms times 2 is 4 people plus an additional would be 6 people. And that's what the big change is here.
Right, you could have 2 bedrooms but a septic approved for 3.
Correct,
I mean,
and then
so
you could
then you
advertise for
could
more. Yep, but this makes it more specific for the listings.
Right.
I'm sorry, That, what you just said is not accurate. It's
Well,
lesser-
well,
it's a
hold on a
lesser
second, so
amount.
if you.
The lesser
if- no,
amount.
It's the lesser.
All right, well,
Sorry.
let me just say, put it this way then, if we always went by the septic capacity, okay? And if you have a septic capacity that says 3 bedrooms, you can have 3 bedrooms.
Not if your tax card says 2 bedrooms.
No.
All right, so that discrepancy is kind of,
The
is
tax
that
card is not a
problematic?
legal document.
That's kind of problematic, isn't it?
That is problematic.
You know, I'm not looking to be contrarian here, but we've always kind of used, unless they don't have a septic on file, and then there's another way of finding out, but generally, that's what we do. A state enforced, this is the septic, you got 3 bedrooms, you can put 3 bedrooms in.
And again, going back to the,
I wouldn't
what
wanna
Julie,
change that.
but what Julie just said though, as far as not having a septic, because some of these homes are older,
Yeah.
if there is no septic, plan on board, generally it goes to the tax card, but the tax card is not actually a legal document,
Right.
but it's what we've been using as our guideline. Is that correct? Is that correct? Bill?
May I make a comment?
Of course.
Hi, Bill Terry, I'm chair of the planning board and partly responsible for this thing. We originally, when we put this thing together, did not specify, because we assumed that the select board and the planning board would take the information that we received from the town relative to either the tax card, the septic, to identify which was the appropriate number to use. So I'm agreeing with you, Frank, in terms of what you're saying. The pressure on this was that someone specifically did not have either a septic or a tax card listing for more than 2 bedrooms. And they were advertising, although they said sleep 6, they were advertising that they had 3 bedrooms because they had multiple sleeping areas that could qualify as sleeping areas. Which basically said that they were going to end up having the opportunity for more people to actually be in the building than the septic could handle. Frank's comment around, well, you have a 3-bedroom septic but only 2 bedrooms, would be appropriate if the purpose of our ordinance wasn't about safety. If you only have 2 bedrooms, you only have 2 bedrooms. It's not, but we don't sleep inside a septic container. We sleep in bedrooms. If you only have 2 bedrooms and you sleep 6, you're already crowding the space more than 2 bedrooms would normally. And so, yeah, you can have a septic for 5 people and you only have 2 bedrooms. Are you going to say then we could sleep 12? That would be your logic, and it's inappropriate.
It's not my logic, it's the
No,
state.
that's what you just
I mean,
said.
it's the state that
No, I'm
says it's a
sorry, this
septic
has nothing
approved
to do with
system.
the state.
Well,
This is not a state rule, this is not a state ordinance. It is a town ordinance, and it is our rule.
I wouldn't want
And-
to change the state.
This is
This
not
is a
anything to
state-
do, we're not
Okay.
violating anything that the state requires.
I'm just making it.
We are
Okay.
not violating anything the state requires. It's a town ordinance.
Okay.
It's been approved by our legal staff. It is legal.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, thank you. I think what we're doing here also is more of a clarification for
Okay.
purposes on the short-term rental applications. So, I'm gonna make a motion to accept warrant Article 2 as written, and then we'll vote whether or not we're supporting
Okay.
it. So, do you want to second the motion for the
Sure,
wording?
I'll second the motion. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then, are you in favor or against?
I'm in favor of it, but
And I am in favor, so that's 2-0-0.
with a concern about the idea that if someone comes to us and says, look, I might only have 2 bedrooms, but my septic approval says 4, I'm not gonna say to them, you can't put 2 more bedrooms in, because the
No,
septic
no,
approval,
no.
but I'm misunderstanding what this is.
That's, but
Sorry,
that's not it.
I got
Okay,
it now,
okay.
Bill, but that's what.
All right, warrant article number 3, amendment number 2 zoning ordinance. To see if the town will vote to adopt an amendment to the Jackson zoning ordinance short-term rental section 4.4 revocation of conditional use permit fines and penalties, 4.4.6 additional language to 4.4.6.1, bolded words are the changes. Conditional use permits may be revoked for failure to comply with this ordinance or with any conditions of approval imposed as part of the conditional use permit. The first violation of this ordinance or a condition of approval may result in a written warning describing the violation. The second violation following a written warning within a 2-year period may result in a written notice describing the violation and a civil penalty of $275. And the third violation made known to an owner within a 2-year period shall result in revocation of the conditional use permit. If a revocation occurs, the owner may not apply for reinstatement for a period of 6 months. The reason why this was brought up is because there were no time limitations. So basically there was no end date if there were violations. This specifies a rolling period to apply any kind of violations. Any questions or comments or discussion? Anything from the public on that one? Yes, Jerry.
I hate to be the only one. What this ordinance does, it stops them from short-term rentals if they go through the whole process of violating. It does not stop them to convert it to a long-term rental. In other words, a short-term rental is 30 days or less. A long-term rental is 30 days or more. That owner could take that property that they're restricted from STR to a long-term rental. So this doesn't affect that at all.
Correct.
Good. Just so that's understood.
Yep. I would love to have more long-term rentals in town. That would be a wonderful thing. Okay, any other questions? We're on second warrant article number 3. Been fun. Okay. So I will make a motion to accept the wording of warrant article number 3.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then select board in favor? Aye. Select board against? That's raised. Okay, so 3-0-0. Thank you. Warrant article number 4, amendment number 3 zoning ordinance. To see if the town will vote to adopt an amendment to the Jackson zoning ordinance, section districts and district regulations, section 4, townwide regulation 4.1, site disturbance 4.1.6, bolded words are the additions and changes. Folks, I'm going to lose my voice if I read through all this. Does anyone have a problem if I ask for questions and we can read them on their own? Any objections? Okay. So warrant article number 4 is a long one. This was brought up through the zoning ordinance, and basically what it does is it adds a little bit of teeth to our site disturbance ordinance that asks for a written plan that has to be prepared, retained on site, and available by viewing by the town or appointed staff, meaning like our building inspector, our safety, and for like fire department, et cetera, to make sure things are up to snuff as it happens for site disturbances. So there was a situation this past year that led the zoning board to look at the ordinance and rewrite it. So does anyone have any questions, Frank or Bob?
I have none.
Any questions from the public? I will make a motion then to accept warrant article number 4 as written.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And
I have a
as,
process question.
yes,
I apologize if I had to step out, but
Not a problem.
I would have certainly voted yes for warrant article 2
okay.
and to support the operating budget. I don't know if it's too late to circle back on that. You're the parliamentarian, right?
So warrant article number 2, you are for that on the zoning? Okay, so we'll go back and add Bob's affirmative vote for warrant article number 2.
Great.
And we'll go back and talk about budget after
Yes,
this,
thank you.
after we hit these. So select board in favor of article number 4?
Aye.
3-0-0. Thank you. Article number 5, the following articles will be voted on at town meeting, Thursday, March 13th. I am going to read this part. 7 p.m. You must have your ID to vote. Fire station bond article will be voted on prior to the operating budget. So this is going to be at the beginning. As Jerry said, the polls will be open for 1 hour, but we will conduct the first voting at the first part of the meeting. The bond article, warrant article, is for $5,582,135 for the purpose of building a new fire station to be issued through, to be raised through the issuance of bonds or notes. I will have information at town meeting that has the tax effect and the tax rate effect for everyone to calculate there. And then there's a link on our town website where you can see all of the information that has been previously discussed and the bond hearing, etc., for the fire station. So please go there if you have questions. Go to the fire station, talk to the select board, and anything. But again, please be there to vote. I will accept a motion then for the wording of warrant article number 5.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
No?
Okay. You don't accept the wording?
Well,
The wording
the
number 5?
wording, I'm good with the wording.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So-
The wording's good.
Okay. And then,
Anticipation of.
and then this actually has to be corrected below because it says recommended. Go ahead.
You already accepted the wording at the bond hearing, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you don't
This
have
is
to
just
read that, so you're just, whether or not you're in favor with this.
Okay.
In favor of this article.
That,
So it's
okay.
already accepted.
And so select board in favor of the article and opposed. And so 2-1-0. Okay, article number 6. Are the rest of them not numbered? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
no, they're
Okay.
numbered.
So the next one is the Fire Department Emergency Communications Radio System Expendable Trust Fund. And we are changing this to be an expendable trust fund for $7,000 instead of putting it in the operating budget where it has been in the past. Questions about wording? Questions about the article? Okay. All in favor of the wording? Or wait, I'll make a motion to accept the wording of this warrant article.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Select board in favor? Select board opposed? None. 3-0-0. This is a new fund that we're establishing, Town Office Building Maintenance and Repairs Expendable Trust Fund. We've talked about the fact that we haven't had an expendable trust fund set up before, so we're going to start saving money for one-time and sometime repairs in the amount of $20,000. Any questions on the wording of this? Any questions about this? Yes,
Andy Anderson, so this article and all these other ones will also be voted on at the town meeting?
that's correct. The formality is to have any discussion tonight to make sure that the select board approves the wording of it, so that's how it will appear, and then to know what your, when you're at town meeting, you say, did the select board approve this and endorse it?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Jerry.
Oh, Jerry?
Are you going to list them so that we vote on them as each amount or a total amount at the end?
Each amount.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions or comments on wording?
I have none.
Motion to approve the wording?
Aye.
No, make the motion.
No, we
So moved.
So, the easy way.
Second, I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Select board in favor?
Aye.
So 3-0-0. All right. Page 3. Highway Department Maintenance and Repairs Expendable Trust Fund. And this, again, is for their buildings, not having to do with the equipment, which is already established. So this is to set up $20,000 for an expendable trust fund. And while I'm remembering this, someone asked me if this is going to be a recurring amount for the town building, the highway buildings, and the Parks and Rec buildings, and we have not decided that. So we may set this up and have no expenditures or no material expenditures in 2025 and not have to ask for these amounts again in 2026. Devil's advocate, it could go the other way, but we don't have plans on that right now. So this is to establish those funds. Any questions on the wording for a $20,000 expendable trust fund for highway department maintenance and repairs.
No.
Any questions? Motion to approve the wording?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
And select board supporting?
Aye.
Aye. 300. Next one is town parks and buildings, and this has to do with like the dugout, any kind of recreational buildings that we have, and we're setting up something for $10,000 to be placed in said fund for this year. Questions, comments, thoughts? Anything, including the gazebo? Yes. Which needs a paint job. All right, I will make a motion to approve the wording for this article.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all in favor on the select board for the warrant article? 300. Okay. The next two are sort of related. In the past, we have had a dry hydrant expendable trust fund. And this is for fire ponds that are that have a dry hydrant.
Which is a non-pressurized piece of pipe, so you can suck out of it, for lack of an easier way to explain it.
And so now we have fire ponds that do have dry hydrants and fire ponds that don't. So this first warrant article is to discontinue the dry hydrant expendable trust fund, which has $28,496.75. And the next one is to set up a fire pond and dry hydrant expendable trust fund. So we're transferring that $28,000 into the new fund for the purpose of making it more general.
Yeah, it was just a wording change to make it more, a little more legal. So if we wanted to do maintenance to the pond itself rather than maintenance to the
fund
dry hydrant pipe, then the wording covers the ability to work on ponds. The one thing that we should say, the majority of the pond fund, dry hydrant money we've always had has always been for fire ponds around town that are either just ponds around town or ones the town owns.
Right.
Ponds that are in a planned development they're required as part of their approval to have the development to maintain the pond. Now, in the past, we've done really minor stuff that the town's invested in, but nothing major. So that's just a little piece of it that people should know.
So if you have an HOA or you're in a planned community, you may have part of that as your HOA funds. So, questions on wording or questions on the logistics of this?
Good.
All right. I will make a motion on the discontinuance of the dry hydrant fund to accept the wording.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all in favor on the select board to discontinue, 300. And then motion to accept the wording on the fire pond and dry hydrant fund.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And on the select board recommended, 300. This is a big one. We're discontinuing the Mark Hammer Fire Department Fund. And I'm sure that I appreciate who Mark Hammer was in the past and the fact that this was set up. We have $45.38 in the fund as of the end of the year. So we would like to propose to discontinue that fund and transfer this to the municipality's general fund. Julie?
It is the fire department fund, just so you know, there's two Mark Hammer funds,
Oh.
one for PD
Thank
and
you.
one for fire, so this is the fire department one.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate
There's no money
that.
in the police one.
So the police fund will stay intact, the Mark Hammer Fire Department Fund, this is a motion to, or a warrant article to discontinue that fund. Questions on wording?
No, that's good.
I will make a motion to approve the wording.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And select board authorizing and opposed. Okay, 300. Okay, the next is to modify the elderly exemption. The DRA made some suggestions to us that our limits were too low. So this is modifying the previously stated exemptions for taxpayers between 65 and 75, 75 to 80, and over 80 years old. So there are some stipulations in here on what the qualifications are, and then the changes to the new rates. Any questions on wording there?
Have none?
And there are some comparable rates from the DRA for different neighboring towns and in the state. So I will make a motion on the wording.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any questions from the public on this? All right. Select board in favor? All right. 300. Page 4. Town clerk tax collector. I think I talked about this a little bit at the last meeting as far as the, or maybe not, but the town clerk tax collector is an elected official, and pretty much all of the other full-time employees are appointed. So in order to have the town clerk tax collector be on the same, and we pay that position as a full-time employee. And so this basically is a warrant article that says any town clerk tax collector full-time positions will be afforded the same benefit package as every other full-time employee in the town. The change on this is right now our our town clerk tax collector does receive retirement benefits, medical, dental, life insurance, etc., retirement, I think I said, but they don't join in the paid time off benefits. So this will increase the benefit package to include that. It also makes it a statement that as any benefits change to all full-time employees in town, the town clerk tax collector will share in that benefit package. If we ever let Karen retire and someone wants to come in that position and change this, that would have to go through a separate warrant article to change this. But this would allow this to, as a blanket warrant article, to share in the same benefit package. Questions? Question. I will make a motion to approve the wording of the warrant article.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions from the public on this one? All right. Select Board 4, 300. The next one is the Housing Commission increase in members. We started out with 3 members and 5 alternates, and we're changing to increase to 5 regular members and not more than 5 alternate members, all appointed by the Select Board. Again, just saying, we need members, so whoever feels like they would want to join, please contact Scott Badger. Any questions on wording?
I just thought about something. Is the 5 members including the select board representative?
No.
Okay.
We don't have one.
I am.
Oh, are you on?
Yes.
Oh, so you're...
Just saying. No, it's
So
5
you get a
regular members with a liaison.
It's a liaison position, not
Okay,
legal.
not illegal, not
Yeah.
the voting, not, okay, you don't vote on anything.
I have in the past at 3 members.
Okay.
Because 3 members is tough. And that's changing the, what?
That's not what the RSA is, and that's not what is allowed under Housing Commission.
Okay. I don't think we've really voted on much, to tell you the truth.
Not
So
what
we
the
will
RSA permits.
make sure we do it right.
State rules,
Okay.
whatever they say.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Question on, or anything on the wording here? We're good? All right. Motion, I will make a motion to approve the wording.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And select board in favor? 300. Okay. This next one is interesting. Valley Crossroad Bridge Phase 2. This does not change the dollars or anything on the budget. This is more a formality for DRA purposes. We are still unclear whether or not we actually have to have an additional warrant article. So in order to be proactive, we're going to read this, make a motion on it to be included, But you may get to town meeting and not see this because it's not required. Again, I'm gonna say the first part, this does not affect any changes to the taxes or the budget dollars. So this is a formality that changes the total cost of the bridge to $1.5 million, 1,522, 221.15, 20% of the town and 80% of the state. So it's really spelling out what the new numbers are. And this includes current costs and the trust remediation, et cetera. So, any questions on that and why we have it here tonight? Any questions from the public on that? It's a little confusing. I just want to make sure we're covering ourselves to have the warrant article appear if it needs to be there. All right, motion to accept the wording and the dollars.
So moved.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and select board in favor?
In favor.
300. Okay. This is an either or. We don't like to have multiple choice. This is the town hall building moving to a new location. The first, number one, is the sample select special warrant article, and this has been written by the, or presented by the Historical Society with some tweaks to it. And Leslie, I'll ask you to help on this if you want, but this is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the same sum of $100,000 to move the historical town hall building. And this was originally asked for a 5-year period. We changed the wording to have it lapse at the end of 2026 or whenever it's moved, whichever is sooner. So that gives a year, almost 2 years. That is one possibility. The second option that we thought might be more palatable was to set up an expendable trust fund with $100,000 for the purpose of this fund. So what happens now is the select board gets to decide which article we want to put, which warrant article we want to put out there. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to digest that and see if you have questions on it. So again, the first one is the presentation by the Historical Society with a lapse of 12/31/26. Number 2 puts it into an expendable trust fund, dollars to be spent from the Historical Society, and if needed, $100,000 to be supported by the town. Leslie?
We're happy with the second option, if that's what you think is appropriate. It's, we're not lobbying for one or the other.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. And again, the reason we thought it might be better is if you do it as a warrant article, not putting in an expendable trust fund, and something happens and it doesn't get done next year or in 2026, this does not allow the dollars to lapse there. Questions, comments on that?
You gonna go with her recommendation?
What's your
So
recommendation,
Well,
one or
Leslie's going
two?
for number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said she had no
Yep.
problem with it. I would recommend number 2.
All right, so then I will accept a motion for number 2 as the warrant article.
So moved.
And second? And all in favor? Aye. And then does the select board support this?
Aye.
And against?
Against? No.
Is there
So-
any discussion?
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Laurel, thank you so much for keeping me on track. Yes, comments?
Are we discussing whether
Yeah.
the warrant article? Okay. Well, it seems like over the years, we put so much money into vehicles and so little into buildings, which really represent most of the town's assets. I'm delighted that you're seeing something good here. But the town has had a history of letting buildings really deteriorate. I mean, you look at the town garage, the first thing you see. And if we'd been, in hindsight, putting money aside every year for the fire department, we wouldn't be where we are now. But the town hasn't put anything into the town hall for literally decades. And it's a historic building, the center of town. And when the society leased it in 2009, it was in just terrible shape. The fire escape was a wooden set of stairs against the wooden building. I don't think any resident would be able to do that. And, you know, it needed a new roof. We've already put in over $250,000 back in 2009 for that. We also raised a lot of money to save the Tricky Barn, which we donated to the library, which saved the town a lot of money there. And now we're talking to put in over $1 million to make, well, to save the building, but we still don't even have a bathroom. And, you know, there's needed renovations too. And we've had good luck fundraising. We have enough money to move the building, but we need to really beautify that area, have a bathroom, do other things. And we're a small nonprofit organization paying over $1 million for a building we don't own, and we just think the town should pitch in a little bit. As expenditures have come up so much greater than what we had initially thought. So we just think the town it's time to put a little bit of money into that building.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? Laurel?
I just have a question. The amount that's being asked for is $100,000, which is 10 times the amount that you're putting in for expendable trust funds for the other buildings in town. And in light of that amount, is $100,000 the appropriate amount for an expendable trust fund? Or would it be better to build it over time or do something more like
This is actually for the purpose of contributing to the moving of the building. So an expendable trust fund, if we were going to put money towards that for a town-owned building, it would probably come out of the one that we discussed back in the original warrant articles. That would be considered part of that initial $20,000 that we're setting up for that. This is for the purpose of moving. So it's not going to be $100,000 every year that we would recommend putting in for the moving of the Historical Society.
But did I just hear Leslie say you have all the money to move the building?
No.
Just to physically move it, but not to do beautiful landscaping, not have a bathroom. And one of the huge nightmares is the telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're dealing with 3 companies. We got to put a pole across the street, do ditching. It's going to be a major, Stephen, we're talking $100,000 at least.
It'll exceed
it's a lot of money, and it doesn't move the building, doesn't renovate it, but something it's like a tax we have to do so we can do everything else. And it's a one-time expense. It's not going to recur. And hopefully it's going to be all paid for within 6 months once we start. I'm old, I want to retire.
And, you know, this is one of the situations similar to the fire station where we really do want to bring this to town meeting. So while we are going to have this warrant article on here, whether we endorse it or not, it's going to be a warrant article that the town voters can vote on at the Thursday meeting on whether or not they want to contribute to that. And, you know, to Leslie's, to her story too, it is run pretty much 100% by volunteers. They do all the work to maintain it. They've put the dollars into it. So, Peter?
Just one point, clarification, then a question. But unlike the bond vote, this will be a simple majority, fails or wins. It's not it's not 60%.
Correct.
Right.
And then, do you anticipate that you will call for, or people will ask for a ballot versus a voice vote?
Have not heard either way on that one, so I'm not sure. Karen, any?
I've had a couple inquiries. We are preparing that if we need to, we'll be prepared for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Julie?
Well, now that I'm reading this, I'm just wondering because you're talking about landscaping, and that's really not in the wording of this article. So,
What's the question?
well, you had mentioned landscaping. I thought this article was really going to be for the purpose of moving the building. This doesn't really talk about landscaping, and the trust funds might not want to give us money for landscaping if we don't have the wording correct.
It's just site improvement, necessary, maintenance, repairs, renovation, relocation. I mean,
Yeah.
That's a
we
building.
have more.
It's
money.
building.
It's a
We're
building.
talking about the building, like we could do a bathroom or a septic, could move the building, but it doesn't really talk about landscaping.
But I think that, I mean,
That's additional money. I mean, $100,000 isn't gonna do the job.
no, I think it's just the wording, whether it's $1 or $100,000. It has to be specified that it is for maintenance, repairs, renovation, and relocation of said town building. So I guess if you were to come to the town and this got approved and you were to submit bills for the $100,000 reimbursement, it would have to be for the inside interior of the building, the moving of the building, the foundation of the building, the bathroom, etc., not for exterior and beautification.
We'll have a lot more than 100,000 of those expenses.
Right.
Nick Aceto, so I'm one of the project landscape architects
Yes.
on this project. I might ask if it's possible to amend the language slightly before the vote to clarify that it's not for necessarily the money isn't for landscaping or for the building move specifically, but also for site improvements more generally. Because the idea is that really those site improvements, that money is for access to the building. It's not for beautification.
My opposition to that would be that it's a town-owned building, so concentrating more on the building would be more appropriate in there. Thoughts, Chris?
I guess by law, we have to provide ADA access to the building. So in order to do that, we have to regrade the site.
Right, and I think that has to do with the moving of the building. But if we're talking about beautification outside the building versus ADA access, I think that ADA access would be appropriate in this language. Does that make sense? Without changing the language.
Okay.
Leslie?
We're talking less than 10% of the whole project. And we'll spend a lot of other money, which will certainly be used for landscaping and site improvement and all that. We have 100,000, we'll light a candle to the cost of just moving it and, you know, the repairs and what's in the article.
Right, again, so I think we're overthinking this a little bit. The wording is for the building and the moving of the building. If Leslie has to determine, if this gets passed and Leslie and her team have to decide which bills get submitted to the town to be reimbursed for $100,000, we would obviously do our due diligence and make sure it's not for the beautification, but it would be for the ADA access or moving the building. And I hope that helps clarify things too. And again, this is going to come to the town vote to make sure that it's something that the town wants to invest in. Peter?
This is my pet peeve, for the town's money, I think the best thing that you could add into it, if you would be for a fire protection system. But which isn't specifically spelled out for maintenance, repairs, renovation, and relocation. But it's implied, but we all know how the RSAs and the DRA thinks about those things.
Bob?
Steve, do you want to comment on that? Is there anything currently budgeted for fire protection?
There is not.
Okay.
We've had discussions about that general concept. We at minimum plan to bring in an adequate water main into the building. I've talked to Scott Hayes with the water department. So that's our intention, to be prepared to have fire suppression in the building. The budget's a moving target like everything in construction. If we end up with enough funds to do that, we probably will, but we'll at minimum be prepared to have that.
Sprinkler ready?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm just curious as to how much the folks raised up to now.
A little over 800,000.
800,000.
Which is, I mean, amazing, really.
Yeah.
But we've kind of maxed out now. I mean, I'm so impressed with how many donors we've had, not just from Jackson, but all the other towns in the valley. Lots and lots of second homeowners.
Great.
So, you know, there's a large number of people. We've had a Sunday, we had a meeting, at the Whitney Center, 90 people there, they were so supportive.
awesome.
I mean, it's just really gonna look nice.
Well, I think we're on the record for being very supportive, but not necessarily for the $100,000. We were thinking it was gonna be all about donations, and we wouldn't have put it in our budget this year for that, because we have other expenses, as you mentioned. So I think that's my only problem with this, is asking for the money at this point. And you have $800,000.
Yes, but
What's the hurry? Can you go a year or 2 or 3?
Not
Could it
really.
take more time?
Not really, I mean, our general contractors are retiring as soon as this job is over. I'm retiring eventually.
Is that him?
And,
Okay.
the plan is just to get it all done.
Steven.
Well, congratulations on raising that amount too, and all the work that you do. So again, I'm really, I'm looking forward to the town voting on this at town meeting and seeing where this falls. But, so I'm going to make a motion to accept the wording as is for option number 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we're gonna do one more, I made a motion for that. So select board in favor. And select board again, opposed.
Is that just the wording or the amount?
The amount.
And you're,
Bob is for, I'm opposed.
and I'm opposed.
So 1, 2, 0. Okay, petitioned warrant articles. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,500 and said sum to be allocated to the North Conway Community Center for programs and events. This is a brand new petitioned warrant article, so if this goes, it'll be under our social services number. And a gentleman was at the post office, I know, on Saturday asking for this contribution, and they want to promote more events in the North Conway Community Center to include Jackson. That's the explanation on that one. This will be a separate warrant article this year, though, so it will be voted on at town meeting. Any questions, wording?
No.
Motion to approve the wording?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And select board in favor?
Are we going to discuss this one?
Yes.
Sorry.
Laurel, you are my savior. Yes. Question?
Just a general question, why would we send our money to North Conway when we have a community center here?
Like the Whitney Community Center, yeah. I would, is there anything on there that explained what the, I know you gave me this on agenda item 7.
He's going to be at town meeting, because I told him he had to be there, just.
Was it a resident that asked for this money?
Somebody from the Conway Community Center.
Just as a heads up, in the past, we've had our kids go over to summer programs over there. More recently, they do a lot of pickleball, which is, I believe, where it seems to have started in the valley, and it's, spread since. So I'm assuming that smaller dollar amount would probably be for even the fireworks. We all go down to North Conway for the fireworks, and North Conway Community Center puts on things for the kids to keep them busy. So it's just, I'm assuming it might be things like that.
Who asked for the warrant article?
Phil Wiat. Phil.
The director with Evan was.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Phil.
It is Phil.
Did he provide us with any information about what it would support?
No, but
and why
he's
it would
going to
be in
come.
the
He's going
interest
to
of-
come to the meeting.
The what meeting?
The
town meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes, I told him he had to be there.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend that we support it and ask them to present at the town meeting so we could get an idea of what they're asking for. If nothing else, Laurel, too, I would like to think that when we get the explanation for what our Bartlett dollars are buying versus North Conway Community Center, maybe we can keep that dollar amount the same at $6,400 and contribute to both for the benefit of the both community centers and recreation. So that's my hope.
Yeah. Let it be discussed on the floor.
Any other questions or thoughts? I agree with you though, like what benefit is it to Jackson, and we need to know that. before we vote on it.
And I can almost guarantee that Bartlett is not going to vote for it. Almost guaranteed.
We're not Bartlett. Okay, so we approved the wording, select board, for this article? Okay, so that's 300 and to be voted on at town meeting. The next is to see if the town will vote to request the select board to reopen the transfer station free store with a workable plan involving transfer station staff and volunteers on a limited basis. This would be contingent upon the town of Bartlett also approving the reestablishment of the free store at the transfer station. Questions about the wording at all?
Motion to accept the wording?
I'll second that. You second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion? I'm going to say my discussion first. I am opposed to this vehemently. I hope I said that word. I have asked numerous times for this committee to present a plan, and if they present a plan that tells me how many hours, what days, what volunteers, what their plan is up there, how they're going to work with the transfer station staff, I will support them 100% of the way. I have gotten 0, and I want to get rid of a lot of crap too. So I'm opposed to this. I know Bartlett will not even consider putting it, I mean, they'll have to put it on because it's a petition warrant article, but they are not going to support it either until anything comes forward that is a plan. I'm not sure what the pushback is on presenting a plan, because this is asking for us to approve the warrant article and put it out, that this would be contingent on Bartlett and a plan being presented. And I'm not seeing that. I would love to have it reopened. It was a great benefit. It was a popular place, great social place, but right now I cannot support this as written. So that's my spiel. Any other public?
Is there a
Kevin?
budget amount attached to this?
No. This is the wording we got from the petitioned warrant article.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And there really shouldn't be, but should be if it's volunteer run and presented, but, yep.
Barbara, Fred Tompkins,
Yes.
for a little different perspective. We're there trying to get this thing off the ground again. There's an issue with Bartlett, sure.
Mm-hmm.
As a member of this little committee, I know we haven't responded with the specifics that you have asked for. All of those that you've asked for are necessary, absolutely, but we don't know whether we're going to have a facility at all, and before any work would ever be done, a detailed plan would be submitted to the Board of Selectmen, which include the names of the volunteers, the hours, and all that. It's not quite a work in progress, but we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The other thing, this is sort of an aside, Bartlett votes it down, Jackson votes it up. Do we have the option to propose another opportunity like the Gray's Inn Garage as a temporary basis, aside from the Bartlett vote? So we're kind of betwixt and between right now. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of interest in petitions, even for Bartlett. We were able to get on the warrant article list. So I guess I'm not sure where to go here. Everything you're asking for is appropriate, and if there's a site that's allowable, all that information will be provided before anything is done. I'm sorry, that's just
no, okay. But you and I have talked about this, and I said, because we talked about the Gray's Inn Garage, which is a wonderful place for lots of people to already be using. The library, all of our public works share some space in there, as well as the chamber. I want to see some kind of documentation or plan that says, if we use Gray's Inn Garage, this is how much space we think we'll need. This is how often we want to do it. This is how we're going to deal with the ins and the outs and the people that are going to come and go and the security and there's a lot of things to do with a free store that can be contentious. How is that going to be handled? It's also on town property, so we have to make sure that all the volunteers are vetted and go through a background process. I want to see all that ahead of time so I can stand behind it. And until I do, and I was on the committee and I stepped off for time constraints, but I'm all for it as long as I can see some kind of a plan. I cannot even imagine taking this and saying, Bartlett, please do this, or staff up at the transfer station, please, it's been a couple of years, let's revisit and try this again. I can't do that unless I see something. So I'm asking you for it beforehand. You're saying, I want this and I'll give it to you later. And it needs to be, we need to come to some terms. And one more thing before I stop ranting. I have on my calendar April 15th to set up a meeting with all people and organizations that have stuff in the Gray's Inn garage, because I think that's really clarification of who has how much space, how it got there in the first place, and why is it still there. So, and it's a huge space, but we need to figure out how to use that space better and make sure it's good for what it's being used for. So, go ahead.
Just assuming that it's a no-go at Bartlett, is it acceptable for us or the committee, whoever is involved, to put together a plan and bring it to the Jackson Board of Selectmen outside of this warrant article for consideration?
It would have to be off premises at the transfer station this year. You know what I would love though? Because if Bartlett employs the employees up there, we reimburse them for that. So that unfortunately they have some of the upper hand there. But if you present something and we get it going somewhere like Gray's Inn Garage or wherever, and it works, I would love to say a year from now, Bartlett, we've refined this. We've made it work. Bob Blake and your staff up at the transfer station, let us show you how we did this really well.
Thank you.
And also, Greg Marcello is sitting in the front here. He's the head of the Whitney Center Program Committee along with Bridget. You've had two
having a third in March.
garage table sales, and how they were both successful because you're doing it again. So don't forget to read your e-news and sign up for a table there. So if you have trades and you want, it's a big barter session and it's worked out really well. So take advantage of that, thrift stores, Jackson Bridge for moving things that you have in the basement or the attic or whatever. But I would love to see it open again, Fred. I'm really just stuck on wanting a plan to present to people.
And I feel that way too.
Bob?
The reason I vote to accept the wording, but I'll be voting against the warrant article, is because I think anything that contains language about the possibility of going back into the transfer station in any way, shape, or form is misguided, and that is not going to be a viable solution. And I think that with the amount of energy you've come here and shared with us, I think that'd be much better channeled towards a Gray's Inn idea or continuing support of the Whitney events that have taken place and been so successful. That transfer station idea has sailed, in my opinion.
Any other comments? All right, so we already approved the wording. Select board for, select board against.
I'm for it.
1 to 2 to 0.
I want to keep the discussion going. I want maybe on the day of town meeting,
Yep.
Fred or somebody could come up and give us an outline of what they were thinking if. All right, but again, it is highly doubtful that it's going to happen up at the transfer site. You gotta know that. It's just not, I'll be very surprised. They do have a new member on that board, so perhaps.
And the rest, I think, was, I'll throw you in on that. Look, you guys, we're on the last page. Nothing there. Do I have any other questions or comments, thoughts, Julie? Oh.
The amount on the warrant page.
Between Laurel and Julie, I'll tell you. So, on the bottom of page 5, the bottom is, not the bottom, but the warrant article total of $7,261,356.
Barbara, excuse me.
Yes.
If we're voting on the 7, or you're voting on the 7-9, how does the town voting on all the individual items impact that. So if some of the individual items are not approved,
Right, we're only voting to include this for town meetings vote. So the we voted on the 458.5, we voted on the 232,000, we voted on the 28,249, and now we're voting on the $7.2 million. But those warrant articles that are part of the 7.2 will be voted on separately at town meeting. So we're only supporting that as the select board. Is that correct for the amount though? So the $7,261,356,000.
So moved.
Second.
Is that okay?
All in favor?
I like that.
Aye. And then the $1,500 we voted on already. And so total warrant articles, $7,981,605.
Nice little.
Thank you everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. See you Thursday, March 13th, right? With your IDs.
Sorry about that. Today's the day.